It was madness.
Hordes of screaming teenagers, most of them rather mad birds, who've come along to see the Animals, the first Northeast group to get into the hit parade.
There could have been mega lawsuits about this.
You know, he didn't tell me how to play the drum pattern on House of Rising Sun.
He actually convinced himself that he did arrange it. You find out years later what went down at the time.
We'll leave it there. I really don't think we should pursue it.
The band was like, it was designed high. It was designed like a fragmentation grenade, you know, it was designed to go off.
What made the Animals was the tensions within it, and what made it also destroy it.
With the blues, it's kind of like a computer is today. It's something that everybody can do. Everybody can make magic with. Get 3 chords in a backbeat. Play 1 or 2 chords on a guitar. Have the courage to stand up and sing and express yourself. And anybody can be a blues star.
Who is the star? In my teeth. Nobody but you. I come in you. Who is the star? In my teeth. Nobody.
Eric just wanted to do blues. And I was brought up in a much more melodic atmosphere with church and with Victorian and Edwardian music hall songs, and it's quite restricting to play 3 chords and that sort of thing. So I think there was a tug of war going on immediately.
Blues began to be important in white British pop music because there was a need for some vitality, some energy, and some emotional honesty.
It was once black man's music. It became white boys' music. Young blacks don't want to know about blues. Blues to them represents the pain and the hurt of growing up in an underprivileged family in the ghetto. To the white boy, it represents a beautiful, foxy, brown-skinned Negro girl dancing in a red dress on a hardwood floor, you know, with a 20-piece brass band pumping away in the background. It's a totally different vision that we have.
I was certainly looking for something which was earthy, which was raw, and of course when I found the Animals playing in this club in Newcastle, they were exactly what I was looking for.
Baby, can I take you home? Baby, let me take you home. If you just let me take you home.
Mickey Mouse went to America. He was very smart and got music from the black charts. There hadn't been the crossover in America, and there were rhythm and blues charts, which never saw the light of day.
There was an American version of it, it wasn't doing anything, and I quite liked the feel of the American version of it. So we took some of that feel of it, and then the Animals put their thing to it.
Baby, let me take you home. Baby, let me take you home.
We didn't like the record, didn't want to record it. I think we only played it on stage about 6 times. We hated the song.
The combination was enough to get them a top 20 record, which was the first step on the ladder.
He got us a recording contract with it, so we started playing it.
The tension between most pop instincts and the Animals, particularly Burden's drive towards soulful, bluesy grit, is, I think, what makes those records fascinating.
Jerry gonna be rocking, going round and round. Yeah,
Eric has this thing which you can't teach anybody. They've either got it or they haven't got it. When he walked on the stage, he would appear to be talking to every individual in the audience. He'd appear to be singing the songs to individuals in the audience.
Out of my seat. Baby, I had to dance.
It's not an art, because art can be developed. It's just a gift.
Started clapping my hands. But it kept on rocking, going round and round.
Eric would have been better if he'd been allowed to actually sit in a rocking chair and sing. But to try and imitate these people dancing around, I mean, who would want to be like Mick Jagger, you know?
Well, he kept on rocking.
Eric Burden refused to acknowledge any distance between himself and the material. He was like a little battering ram trying to knock down any obstacle that stood between him and the emotion of the moment. There was none of that artful, self-mocking distance which characterised Jagger.
I remember there was a review of Eric when he was trying to get a bit more effective on stage. They said it was like an apoplectic beetroot on a pogo stick.
The fact that the Animals were dependent on outside sources for most of their material, that they didn't have an onboard songwriter, meant that, in a sense, instead of being able to pass through their sources, they ended up exploring them in greater depth.
One can write until the cows come home, but there are some simple pieces of bluesology that are such poetry, such finely tuned, minimalistic, few words that mean so much, you know.
In them days, every song that Eric wrote was like, I'm standing on the station waiting for the train coming in type thing, you know. It was all just derivatives of old blues songs.
I don't think that Eric and Alan never got anywhere near being a classic songwriting team, you know. It was just a few things cobbled together. I'm Crying was the most successful one, I suppose.
I don't have your loving anymore. Since you've been gone, I'm hurting inside. Said I want you, baby, by my side, yeah. And I'm crying. You know I'm crying. Tell me crying, baby. Tell me crying, baby.
I love to be able to take a real super, you know, 1920 penned blues tune that nobody knows or has heard of, or very few people have heard of, and turn it into something that's, you know, for the general ear, for the pop ear.
There is a house in New Orleans.
Well, one of the most likeable factors about the early 60s was its sheer eclecticism, and to draw on Ray Charles and Bob Dylan at the same time was not considered remarkable. This is when Dylan was drawing on traditional folk blues material, and so it wasn't such a massive step from the acoustic guitar and saw tonsils approach to the bluesier and more soulful feel that the Animals had.
Okay, can I ask you about House of the Rising Sun now and the whole disagreement with it, which is the thing that, I mean, obviously I've got to ask you about that.
No, you haven't.
And House of the Rising Sun was the band thing. It was the band crusade. Hey, we want to record this.
First of all, I taught the chords to Hilton Valentine.
But House of the Rising Sun came about by Hilton's suggestion, 100%. You know, it was his idea all along.
And then I made them rehearse it and play it in 12/4, 6/8 time, whichever you want to call it.
Pricey wouldn't have anything to do with it. He walked out every time we started playing the song.
Pricey turned round to us and said, can you not play something else, because that is so corny. You know, dun 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 dun. So corny, he said.
And so we just did the whole thing on our own, and we all just said, oh, well, Pricey can piss off the stage when we play it.
And I turned around and I says, you play your keyboards, I'll play my guitar.
There is a house in New Orleans. They call the rising sun. And it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know I'm one.
We walked in, set up, played it. We've got about 20 bars in, and he says, the sound sounds good, why don't we just go for one? So we just played it, and that was it.
Right, take from the top.
My mother was a tailor. She sewed my new blue jeans. My father was a gambling man down in New Orleans.
We did the move to London just after the New Year, and by that summer we were #1 practically all over the world. It happened so fast.
House of the Rising Sun was actually #1 at the time we actually arrived in New York, which was canny.
The the Manhattan skyline, you know, was there in front of us, and we were in these cars with these models, and it was all like, Christ almighty, you know, we were always wanting to get here, but this is doing it in style.
We were sitting there and they were saying, well, what's the credits on this song, you know?
The thing about it is it was public domain, the song, you know, it didn't have a known author. So anybody who recorded that song could claim a right as royalty from it, in fact, by saying arrangement by so-and-so.
You know, we all arranged it, except Pricey, who wasn't there at the time.
I didn't want to take credit, but people who are sharper than myself aggressively told me, by putting me up against the wall, that I had to put my name upon it.
When the record came out, there was only Alan Price's name on the record.
We understand the royalties will be shared, but as it happens, Alan's received all the royalties off House of the Rising Sun.
Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun.
The royalties came in, posted to Alan the day before we were going to do gigs in Sweden, and we never saw him again for 9 months.
No, I hated flying, and as I told you, from day one, after we'd had some sort of success, I wanted to go back home. I didn't like it. It was a conveyor belt of aggression and filth.
We would all draw a face. Two-way sellotape would go here, you see, for the mustache, and that would go in the team on the bus coach. And every woman that you slept with, you had to steal a pubic hair and stick it on here. And whoever had the best mustache at the end of the month got the £1,000.
In the end, I drank myself into madness and had to leave.
That was the experiment, that the Animals was. That's the way I have to look at it in order to stop myself from going nuts. Because I have to sing this song every night where this guy in England, who I haven't seen for 20 years, is sitting back watching his TV, smoking his pipe with his missus, getting paid for me being out there singing. But I'm cool. I'm not bitter. I'm bitter sweet.
For a piano player now?
Well, they've got one, they've got a substitute. There's a good friend of mine going to go in later on for good, you know.
Yeah. Aren't you playing with them no more?
No. Finished. So it's happening, isn't it?
We learned by sort of phone calls and telegrams and stuff that Alan had just done a flit.
Baby, do you understand me now? Sometimes I seem a little mad.
So we got another guy in, Dave Robury, who was a student in Newcastle, and at the time he was working for Mike Cotton on keyboards.
'Cause I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
And Alan, within a short time, he'd formed another band in Newcastle, and he was back on the road again with his band, the Alan Price Set.
Why should it have to last forever? Why is there a sentimental attitude attached to these sort of things? You know, if it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, forget it.
I now realised, well, I realised pretty soon after I joined, that the band was fucked up before I even joined them.
Please come back home someday, baby. Ain't no worry, my life no more.
We smoked a lot of pot on tour, and the great religious experience of acid came along. Hilton was the last one you would expect to get involved with stuff like that, and boy, he did a lot of that.
Brian Jones says, you know, do you want to try this? And it was a sugar cube. And well, what's that? You know, he says, well, it's called LSD. I said, well, what does it do? He says, it's just like smoking dope, but a little bit stronger. So I thought, oh, well, down my neck.
Some people benefited from having their brains scrambled around a bit. For some people, it unlocked a creativity that they might otherwise have taken years to discover. For other people, it simply transformed them into cauliflowers.
As a visual person, it really opened my head. It was like taking a can opener and just going, taking the brain out, putting it under the shower, shaking it up, putting it back in, so right, now check things out.
There was a time we were in New York when I was playing a solo and I was tripping on acid, and I just played this note and it's like there was all colours exploding all over the place. And I felt myself like sort of floating, so I just kept playing this note. I was just going.
I think that's where the real divisions came, you know, when Eric and Hilton both started tripping away all the time and talking this gobbledygook. And that's where I kind of lost Eric as a sort of close friend, really. You know, I just wasn't really interested in it.
Whoa, Hilton's off, we're doing acid with Eric, and we're trying to hold it down over here. But meanwhile, they're filling their faces full of drinks. We were all guilty. Everybody was just, hey, it was what it was. It is what it is, and the time was the time.
I want you brown eyes. I want you till my days end.
It was just crazy. I feel very fortunate to still be alive. You know, there's a lot of people didn't get through it,
including Brian Jones.
Including Brian Jones, yeah. Jimmy, Janis Joplin. And if there had have been, I'm sure, if there had have been heroin or anything around at the time, I would have tried it. Thank God it wasn't.
Eric was upstairs chewing the carpet on a trip, so we went off without him, and we did the show that night without him, and it was a nightmare.
I imagine doing an Animals gig without Eric.
The organ broke down, I snapped bass strings, Hilton snapped guitar strings.
Chaz, if I remember, sang some of the songs.
Terrible night, we went back to the hotel and I dropped acid for the first time.
In the stereo part of the city where the sun refused to shine.
There was always been this problem in America that black music was played on black stations and black stations only. So white people never got to hear it.
My little girl, you're so young and fresh.
White American audiences have had a lot of trouble with dealing with black music that hasn't done a 6,000-mile round trip to Britain first.
With the one black girl on Tyneside had a big effect on me, you know.
We gotta get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, we gotta get out of this place. Girl, there's a better life for me and you.
We integrated a couple places first time.
And of course, the first gig we did was in Birmingham, Alabama.
We had a black guy in our group, Sonny, who's a road manager from New York.
And Sonny walks in the hotel with us and says, "What's that thing doing with you?" And we said, "What?" We just couldn't believe people were saying things like this, you know.
And our road manager, Bob Levine, who was a New York Jew, you know, he just like hit the roof, you know. And he's going, "Wake up, man, don't you know it's against the law now, you know? It's against the law to discriminate now." And the guy hadn't heard. It was news on the radio a week earlier.
White Americans have always loved black music. What they have a problem with is black people.
Fly back into Heathrow, and then you go straight up to Liverpool or somewhere to start an English tour. That's the way it was. It was just like a treadmill. It was just going on and on and on.
You have to understand, the agents in them days were just, they didn't give a monkeys, really. They booked you in Manchester one day, Isle of Wight the next, and then Morecambe the day after.
It's been one long one-night stand for the last 2 years, and I'm physically very tired, and a little mentally tired too.
We were always, by this point in time, still believing that that money that was owed to us there would come in, and then and there.
It could have been saved, I think, if we'd stopped and had it out with Mike Jeffries, or got rid of Mike Jeffries.
I mean, we all liked Mike Jeffries. He was an extremely likeable guy.
So we all signed a contract with Mike as manager.
He was very funny, and great charm. Again, a great sense of humour. And you just couldn't believe he was wrongly blind.
Complain and criticize. I feel I'm nothing in your eyes. It makes me feel like giving up because my best.
Mike had all these, fantastic ideas about tax haven things in the Bahamas and stuff like that, and money just seemed to disappear, you know.
Airport when you arrived, 2 limousines, the heads of MGM, Bob Levine was broken his back for you fellas, sitting there like total idiots because no one was considerate enough to call to tell us that you arrived when you had arrived ahead of time.
Every angle in this group, bar, myself, is screwed up and cocked up. And we're up to here, and if it's still like this at the end of this tour, I'll tell you, I'm not staying.
Eric and I were sitting drunk in Tokyo. He says, "No, I'm not enjoying it." He says, "Sure, fancy calling the day?" I says, "Yeah." And then we realised we had a tour booked for America.
Golden waters running my brain, and they drag me back to work again.
Everybody knew when they started that tour that it was the last one.
And I don't want to get sued.
Well, you broke your back for 2 years, so now because you're not thinking constructively, you're going to throw it all away?
Because somebody else is cutting it up for us, and we get the backwash every time.
It's my life, and I do what I want. It's my mind, and I think what I want. Girls on, girls of time, someday I'll keep you real fine. All right.
We crammed in an awful lot, and it seemed like quite a long time, but when you look back on it, it was only basically 2 years.
Women and their fortunes, you just want to throw the arms. Are you gonna cry when I'm squeezing them dry? Taking all I can get, no regrets.
The band in itself was a kind of masterpiece. It was a nice thing. Why should it have to last forever?
You can't put your finger on what it takes to have success. It's just everything has to work together. And it did.
And we taught a lot of people what not to do.
Ain't no day, no complaints.
Try bringing up a kid when you're known for singing, "It's my life and I do what I want." You better be careful what you wish for, I think.
It's my life and I do what